My name is Evelyn Hart, and at 68 years old, I thought I understood the rhythm of my life. I lived quietly in a small home in Maple Ridge, surrounded by the memories of a career spent teaching bookkeeping and the warmth of the family I had worked so hard to raise. But everything changed the afternoon my daughter, Rachel, knocked on my door with 2 grocery bags in her hands and confusion written all over her face. When I opened the door, the cold air escaped before I could hide it. Rachel froze in place. Her eyes traveled from my oversized sweater to my trembling hands and then to the shadows inside the living room. "Mom, why is it so cold in here?" I forced a smile and told her I preferred cooler air, but Rachel had always seen straight through me. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, taking in every small detail: the dim lights, the blankets, the silence. Within seconds, the calm expression on her face shifted into something else: concern, alarm, a recognition that something had gone wrong long before she arrived. Rachel set the grocery bags down and looked at me the way a daughter does when she realizes her mother has been hiding more than just discomfort. In that moment, standing in my own home wrapped in layers of fabric I hoped would hide the truth, I understood that I could no longer pretend everything was fine. That moment was the beginning of everything that came after. Rachel walked straight to the kitchen without saying another word, and I felt my stomach twist. I knew what she would find before she even opened the refrigerator door. Still, the sound of the hinges creaking made my heart drop. She stood there for a long moment, staring into the nearly empty shelves: a small bottle of expired milk, a 2-day-old apple, a few packets of salt and pepper. That was it. No vegetables, no meat, nothing that looked like a proper meal. "Mom, where is your food?" I whispered something about crackers in the pantry and rice on the top shelf, but the excuse sounded thin even to me. Rachel closed the refrigerator slowly, the way someone does when they are trying not to explode. Then she turned around, her expression no longer just concerned. It was fear mixed with anger. "When did you last eat more than a bowl of rice? When did you last have dinner with protein? You are skin and bones, Mom." I tried to tell her that I was fine, that I had been trying to save money, that things were under control. But the truth trembled in my voice, and she heard it. Rachel reached out and touched my sleeve. Her fingers hesitated the moment she felt how loose the fabric was. She pulled out her phone and dialed without asking. Eric answered. "My son, the boy I once rocked to sleep. The man I believed would always defend me." "Rachel, what is going on?" Rachel took a deep breath and said, "Eric, Mom is freezing inside her own house with no food in her fridge. And you let Melanie control all of her money." Before she finished, I heard footsteps behind us. Sharp, firm, confident. Melanie appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. "Is there a problem here?" Rachel stared at her without blinking. "Yes, there is a problem, and we are going to fix it right now." That was the moment the truth finally surfaced, whether I was ready or not. Rachel did not argue with Melanie. She did not raise her voice or defend herself. She simply took my arm gently, the way she used to when she was a little girl guiding me across a busy street, and said, "Mom, get your coat. We are leaving." I could feel Melanie stiffen behind us. "You cannot just take her," she snapped. "She needs supervision. She cannot handle her own money." Rachel did not even turn around. She just said, "We will see about that," and led me outside. I did not understand where we were going until she pulled into the parking lot of St. James Hospital. I protested, telling her I only felt a little tired, that I just needed rest. But Rachel looked at me with eyes that were both soft and firm. "Mom, when was the last time you ate a real meal?" I could not answer. Inside the emergency room, the nurses moved quickly. They checked my temperature, my blood pressure, my pulse. A young doctor asked gentle questions as he listened to my lungs and pressed lightly on my abdomen. I could sense Rachel watching every detail, gripping her phone as if she were memorizing each moment. Then came the scale. The numbers blinked, then settled. 103 pounds. I heard Rachel suck in a breath, and the doctor's expression shifted from professional calm to quiet concern. "Miss Hart," he said, "you are severely underweight. Your blood work shows critical vitamin deficiencies, dehydration, and signs of prolonged malnutrition." Malnutrition. At my age, with a steady pension. A hospital social worker entered the room and listened as I explained everything I had tried to dismiss for months. The empty fridge, the cold nights, the feeling of becoming smaller in my own home. Rachel photographed every document the doctor printed, every chart, every result, every note. That was the moment I realized my daughter was not just helping me. She was preparing for a fight. Rachel did not waste a single minute after we left the hospital. While I sat in the passenger seat wrapped in the blanket the nurse had given me, she drove with a focus I had not seen in years. There was no trembling in her voice now, no hesitation, only purpose. Our first stop was a small community bank on the east side of town. Rachel held the folder of hospital documents under one arm while guiding me inside with the other. A banker greeted us, and Rachel spoke calmly, clearly, and with a firmness that left no room for questions. My mother needs a new checking account in her name only, no secondary users, no financial guardians, no shared access. I sat beside her, stunned. I had not opened my own account in years. Melanie had convinced me it was easier to let her handle everything, but as I signed the paperwork, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Relief. Ownership, a small piece of myself returning. Once the account was active, Rachel called the pension office. She put her phone on speaker so I could hear the entire conversation. "Yes," she said. "Please redirect future payments to the new account effective immediately." "Yes, I understand it may not take effect until next month. That is fine." When she hung up, she looked at me with gentle eyes. "Mom, you will never go hungry again." But she was not finished. In the afternoon, we walked into the office of Attorney Gregory Miles, an elder law specialist with silver-framed glasses and a voice that carried quiet authority. He listened carefully as Rachel described what had been happening, showing him the hospital results and the photos she had taken. "Before we proceed," he said, "we need to protect your mother from the accusation she lacks capacity. Would you be willing to take a cognitive assessment, Mrs. Hart?" I hesitated only a moment before nodding. For 2 hours, I answered questions and solved puzzles while Rachel waited in the hallway. When it was over, the attorney walked in with the results. "Mrs. Hart," he said, "your cognitive function is excellent." Rachel squeezed my hand, and for the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. The quiet war had officially begun. The next week felt like watching layers of truth peel back one by one. Attorney Miles scheduled a meeting with a forensic accountant named Linda Pierce, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice that made you believe nothing could escape her attention. She greeted me with a reassuring smile but spoke with the unmistakable precision of someone who has spent a lifetime uncovering hidden numbers. "Mrs. Hart," Linda said gently, "I am going to review every financial record connected to you over the last 2 years. Bank statements, credit card activity, pension withdrawals, everything. I know this may feel overwhelming, but I promise you we will trace every dollar." Rachel sat beside me, ready with the folder of documents and the photos from the hospital. She had even printed out screenshots of my last known account balances, the ones Melanie claimed were being used for my care. Over the next several days, Linda went through each month of activity. She highlighted transactions on a large spreadsheet, her pen tapping lightly whenever she found something unusual. A designer handbag for $2,800. A luxury spa weekend in Miami, costing $9,200. Repeated charges to high-end restaurants, each bill over $500. None of it belonged to me. None of it had ever been approved by me. Then came the most painful part. Linda turned her screen toward me and pointed to a row of transactions. "These charges," she said softly, "were for Melanie's personal credit card payments. They were paid using your pension deposits." I felt my breath catch. I had always believed Melanie simply misunderstood me, or maybe had taken too much responsibility. But this was not a misunderstanding, it was a pattern, a deliberate draining of everything I had. Linda leaned back and folded her hands. "Mrs. Hart, based on preliminary totals, Melanie has taken approximately $192,400 from you over the past 2 years. Rachel whispered, "Oh my God." I stared at the numbers on the screen. They were cold, precise, merciless, but they told the truth more clearly than any argument ever could. For years, I thought I was simply becoming weaker, but the truth was, someone else had been quietly taking my strength away. Now, piece by piece, we were taking it back. Once the financial truth was laid bare, Attorney Miles moved quickly. He explained that the best way to protect me from further exploitation was to secure every asset I owned under a structure that Melanie could never touch again. His tone remained calm, but I could sense urgency beneath each word. "Mrs. Hart, he said, "we are going to create an irrevocable trust. Once everything is inside it, no one can access or move your assets without the approval of the trustee. And that trustee will be Rachel." I had spent most of my life managing my own affairs. The idea of placing everything into someone else's hands frightened me. But when I looked at Rachel, I saw the same steady determination she had shown since the day she found my empty refrigerator. If anyone had earned that trust, it was her. The process took hours. Attorney Miles reviewed every account I had accumulated over a lifetime. My home in Maple Ridge, the small investment portfolio I had built from years of careful saving, my insurance policies, and the remaining pension funds. All of it was transferred into the trust. As each document printed, I felt waves of conflicting emotions: pride, fear, relief, sadness. It was overwhelming to see the life my late husband and I had built reduced to signatures and notarizations. But beneath the heaviness, there was something else beginning to grow. Safety. And tie. When it came time to revise my will, my hands trembled. I hesitated before signing the page that listed Eric's name beside the single dollar he would receive. Memories rushed in. The afternoons he spent playing in the yard. The nights I held him through storms. The years I believed he would always protect me. Rachel squeezed my shoulder gently. "Mom," she said, "you are not punishing him. You are telling the truth." The will was clear. Rachel would inherit half of the trust. The remaining half would be donated to organizations that protect vulnerable seniors. Nothing would go to Melanie. And Eric would receive his symbolic dollar. When the papers were finally signed, Attorney Miles gathered them into a folder and said, "Mrs. Hart, your future is protected now." For the first time in a long while, I believed him. With the trust established and my will updated, the next step was gathering the proof that would make our case impossible to challenge. Attorney Miles explained that documentation was powerful, but eyewitness accounts could be just as important. Rachel took that to heart. Over the next several days, she drove me around Maple Ridge, collecting every thread of truth we had overlooked. Our first stop was the small post office on Birch Lane. The mail carrier, a kind man named Jerry, recognized me immediately. He frowned the moment Rachel explained why we were there. "I knew something was wrong," he said quietly. "I saw you going through recycling bins a few months back, looking for bottles. I thought maybe you were just cleaning up the neighborhood. I wish I had asked." He gave Rachel a written statement with dates and times. I could hardly look at the paper. The memory of digging through those bins came back in vivid flashes. I remembered thinking 5 cents was better than nothing. Next, we visited the pharmacy. The head pharmacist, a woman named Dana, met us in the consultation room. She pulled up my records, her expression turning thoughtful. "You stopped filling your blood pressure medication 6 months ago," she said. "I assumed your doctor had changed the prescription, but now I understand." She signed a statement verifying the lapse in medication. Rachel thanked her while I stared at the counter, embarrassed that strangers could see the parts of my life I had tried so hard to hide. Our final stop was my neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, a woman I had always assumed barely tolerated me. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, her face softened. "I have been worried about you for months," she said. "I noticed you losing weight. And your lights were always off at night, even during the coldest weeks." She invited us inside and wrote down every detail she remembered. The nights she saw me wrapped in blankets. The mornings she watched Melanie's new luxury car parked in my driveway. The days she wanted to knock but felt it was not her place. Each statement added another layer to the truth Rachel was building. Every page placed into the growing folder became one more voice speaking on my behalf. As we drove home, Rachel rested the folder on her lap. "Mom," she said softly, "people saw what was happening. They were afraid to step in, but they will not be silent now." For the first time, I realized we were no longer fighting alone. The confrontation came sooner than either of us expected. It was a Monday afternoon, unusually warm for early spring, when the doorbell rang 3 times in sharp succession. Rachel glanced at the video doorbell on her phone, and her jaw tightened. "They are here." I was sitting on the living room sofa, a blanket over my lap, when Rachel opened the door just wide enough to block the entrance. Eric stood on the porch beside Melanie, who looked furious, her hair pulled into a tight ponytail as if she were bracing for battle. "We need to see your mother," Eric said. His voice was strained, but the urgency in it did not come from concern. It came from fear. Melanie shoved past him slightly and snapped, "Where is she?" And why did the pension money not hit our account this month? Rachel did not react. She simply said, the pension is going to a different account now, one that you cannot access. Melanie's face turned a deep, angry red. You cannot do that. I manage her finances. She needs me. Rachel stayed calm, her voice sharp but controlled. No, what she needs is safety. Something you have not provided. She reached into the folder she had kept on the entry table and held up one of the hospital records. My mother weighed 103 pounds the day I took her to the hospital. She was severely malnourished, and you want to tell me you were taking care of her? Melanie opened her mouth, but no words came out. Not yet. Rachel continued, her voice steady. We also have copies of the bank statements, the designer handbags, the luxury trips, the restaurant bills, all paid using her pension. We have statements from her pharmacist, her mail carrier, and her neighbor. And all of it points to one truth. You were taking everything from her. I watched Melanie's expression shift, first anger, then panic, then something else. Calculation? Rachel lifted her phone slightly. By the way, she said, I am recording this conversation. Every word. Melanie froze. Eric swallowed hard, and for the first time neither of them had anything left to say. Rachel closed the door slowly, her hand steady even as mine trembled. The quiet war had officially become a visible one. The days that followed felt strangely quiet, as if the air itself were holding its breath. But the silence did not mean nothing was happening. In fact, everything was happening at once. Attorney Miles sent out 3 certified letters early that week. The first outlined the intent to pursue civil action for the money taken from me. The second demanded an accounting of every dollar Melanie had spent using my pension. And the third documented the formal report filed with the state for elder financial abuse. Rachel and I did not have to wait long for the fallout to begin. 2 mornings later, my phone buzzed with a message from Linda, the forensic accountant. She wrote, Melanie's employer called to verify information. They seemed concerned. I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Rachel simply nodded. Consequences are inevitable, Mom. By noon, the news arrived. Melanie had been terminated from her job. Her company did not want to be associated with potential criminal activity, especially not after reviewing the preliminary financial findings. The severance she had always bragged about never materialized. Her reputation began to crumble faster than either of us expected. But the most painful moment came when Rachel received a call from a friend who worked in the same insurance office Melanie visited last year. According to their internal notes, Melanie had taken out a $400,000 life insurance policy on me, without my knowledge, with herself listed as the beneficiary. I felt the room tilt slightly. I had believed she was greedy. I had not realized she might have been planning something far darker. Rachel closed her laptop slowly, her voice low but unwavering. Mom, she was not just stealing from you. She was preparing for a future where you were gone. And that was the moment I understood. We were not simply fighting for money. We were fighting for my life. The court proceedings began 6 months after everything unraveled. By then, I had gained back some weight, my strength was returning, and I no longer felt the constant cold that once lived inside my bones. But walking into the Woodmere County Courthouse that morning still made my hands shake. Rachel walked beside me, carrying the thick folder of evidence she had spent months gathering. Attorney Miles met us at the entrance with a reassuring nod. His calm presence steadied me. Inside the courtroom, I saw Melanie sitting beside her attorney. She looked thinner than before, drained of the confidence she once wore like armor. Her hair was dull, her suit slightly wrinkled, and when her eyes met mine, she looked away immediately. The prosecutor, a composed woman named Daniels, opened the case with a simple statement. This is a matter of deliberate financial exploitation and endangerment of an elderly woman. Then the evidence began. First came the bank statements, page after page showing withdrawals, luxury purchases, and unexplained charges that matched Melanie's spending habits. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of papers being turned. Next, the medical records, the photos Rachel took of my hospital monitor, the doctor's notes detailing severe malnutrition, the documented weight loss, the missed prescriptions, the social worker's report. Then came the part that made the entire room shift. Daniels displayed the spreadsheet found on Melanie's computer, the one calculating inheritance amounts based on different life expectancy ages. Each age listed in a neat row, each financial estimate calculated to the dollar. And in the row marked age 70, the numbers were highlighted. I was 68 at the time she created it. Melanie's attorney tried to argue that she had been managing my finances responsibly, that the searches were innocent curiosity, that the insurance policy was meant to protect me. But by then, the damage was done. The judge, a woman with clear, steady eyes, listened without emotion. After 3 days, she delivered the sentence. Melanie Carter Hart, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years in state prison and ordered to pay $450,000 in restitution and punitive damages. This amount is not eligible for bankruptcy discharge. Melanie collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I did not feel triumph, only exhaustion, relief, and a quiet sense that justice, slow as it had been, had finally found its way. In the months after the trial, life settled into a quieter rhythm. I moved into Rachel's home on the west side of Maple Ridge, a modest 2-story place filled with sunlight and the smell of her morning coffee. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally steady, as if the ground beneath me had finally stopped shifting. Rachel kept a close eye on my meals, gently encouraging me to eat more, to rest, and to rebuild the strength I had lost. My weight crept up slowly, and with every pound gained, I felt a little more like the woman I used to be. My skin warmed again, my steps became steadier, and the heaviness in my chest began to loosen. She also encouraged me to find something that belonged only to me, something that had nothing to do with courtrooms or documents or the past. That was how I stumbled into a local pottery class at the community center. Working with clay became a small kind of therapy. My hands were shaky at first, but the quiet shaping of each piece helped calm the worries that still tried to settle inside me. One afternoon, Rachel walked into the studio holding her phone. Mom, she said, the Elder Justice Foundation wants to feature your story at their annual gala. They think it could help people recognize the signs of financial abuse. I felt a flutter of fear. I had spent decades avoiding attention, choosing the background over the spotlight. But then I remembered the nights I had gone hungry, the mornings when I counted pennies, the way Melanie had quietly planned a future without me in it. If telling my story could protect someone else, maybe stepping into the light was worth it. So I agreed. And without knowing it, that decision would change far more than just my own path. It was 3 weeks after the gala when Eric showed up at Rachel's house. I was sitting on the front porch, shaping a small clay bowl between my palms, when his car pulled into the driveway. For a moment I thought about going inside. Old habits, old fears. But I stayed where I was. I had spent too long shrinking. I was done hiding. He walked up the steps slowly, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes tired in a way I had not seen before. Mom, he said, I saw your speech. I need you to know I am sorry. I am so sorry. I let the silence settle between us. It was not a cruel silence. It was honest. The kind that appears when truth has been avoided for too long. Eric swallowed hard. Please forgive me. I made a terrible mistake, but I am still your son. I looked at him the way a mother looks at a child she loves but no longer recognizes. You saw me losing weight. Eric, you saw me living in the cold. You heard me say I was tired, that I did not feel well, and you said nothing. His eyes filled with tears. She told me you were exaggerating. She told me you refused help. She did not make you blind, I said quietly. You chose not to see. For a moment, he stood there, small in his own guilt. Then I said the words I had held for far too long. Some wounds can heal, but some betrayals change the shape of a relationship forever. I need you to leave now. He nodded, wiping his face, and walked back to his car without another word. I live a different life now. A quieter one, but a stronger one too. The trust Rachel helped create has grown steadily, protected from hands that once tried to drain it. I volunteer twice a week at the senior center, helping others recognize the warning signs I ignored for far too long. And every time someone tells me they feel less alone because of my story, I feel something settle gently inside my chest, something like purpose. Revenge is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is choosing to survive when someone hoped you would not. Sometimes it is rebuilding a life with care instead of fear. And sometimes it is turning your pain into a lantern bright enough to guide someone else through the darkness. I do not think about Melanie often. I know she is out now working to repay the debt she created. I do not wish her harm. I simply wish she understood the weight of what she almost took from me. What matters more is this: I am still here, I am living, and I am using my voice not to shout but to protect. If this story touched your heart, or opened your eyes, I hope you will like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps more people learn the signs, find their strength, and reclaim their lives. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are never too old to fight for yourself.